Hello, everyone.
Hey, Lavinia. Amanda and Angela just stepped away for a brief moment.
That's all right. Hello.
Hello.
All right, we ready?
Yes.
Super.
I think we are.
Okay, here we go. Hi, welcome to House Calls. This is a web series from the University of Michigan Institute for the Humanities, where we check in on artists all over the state to see how they're doing and what they're up to in this time of pandemic and self-isolation. Today, we are super lucky to be in the studio of Lavinia Hanachiuc in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And yeah, so Lavinia, I'd love to introduce you to everyone. I'm Juliet. As you know, I'm the arts production coordinator at the Institute for the Humanities. Also, Amanda Krugliak.
Hi, Amanda.
Is our arts curator at the Institute, usually running the gallery there. And also Angela Abiodun, who is our collaboration and outreach manager.
Hi, Angela. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
And last but not least, of course, Lavinia Hanachiuc, who is a potter, a ceramic sculptor, a printmaker, a mural painter, a puppet maker, a parade maker, a youth event maker. What else? I don't know, an installation artist? Like, this woman is truly prolific. And also, she's one of the Brush Monkeys, the downtown window painters who paint all the windows in Ann Arbor and elsewhere at the holidays, which is how I got to know you and start to spend time with you in your studio also. And yeah, so we're so lucky to be in your studio with you today. Thank you for having us over.
Thank you for having me. This was quite the introduction. I was planning to say I'm Lavinia Hanachiuc and I'm just an artist, but I like how you said it. I'll put that in my next introduction. So, yes, I am originally from Eastern Europe, from Romania, and I've been living in the United States for the past 20 years, on and off, with a few years living abroad. And I've been in Ann Arbor for the past 7 years.
So much has happened. We've been doing this now for 4 weeks, and we've gone through different phases that these conversations have reflected. The parameters of the stay-at-home order have shifted, and there are other safeguards in place, others that seem to fall away, still this uncertain path and economic precarity. So I guess we would love to know, just how are you doing?
Well, that's it's a complicated answer. Can I maybe I should take it week by week. So we all know this started about 5 weeks ago. And I think I experienced every kind of emotions in this past 5 weeks. I went from, in the beginning, I felt ready. I grew up during the communist times, in times of extreme shortages. So this was a time when I knew what to do, and I prepared, and I went and made plans for the future and how I'm going to go through this, how I'm going to take care of my daughter. So that lasted about a week. At the same time, I was still working, and I got excited about this whole, this is a time where in crisis, right, we are all going to change the society. We're going to change the norms. We're going to step up and innovate. And we're going to do all this virtual programming. I was working at Neutral Zone, and we started working with the teens on a lot of virtual programming. So that lasted about 2 more weeks. And then slowly, everything set into this routine in which we stopped working for the Neutral Zone. We had to take a furlough. And even though I had all these plans and be prepared, there was no end to it. I wasn't sure when is this going to end? What are we doing next? There was no next. So the past 2 weeks have been more of an introspective time. I look back at everything that I've done before, where I'm coming from, how do I feel about my choices, what would I like to, I don't make plans for the future, but I wonder what I would like to change when I'm ready. So it was a long answer, sorry.
Well,
But
we've been in this
that's
time
how I
a long
feel
time.
right now.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like we've all been going through this and also seeing this among the artists as to really solidly being in this and this feeling even more so
Yes.
of the uncertainty.
And depending on the person that I talk to, how they relate. So I love how you gave us this kind of like arc of your time. And I would wonder how your priorities show up, like how your interests are like showing up in this moment in time. Depending on the people I talk to, some feel like really motivated to work and create. Others are like, I just need to sit with myself mentally. Others are like, I'm going into the garden or I'm going on daily walks, or I'm just trying to get out of bed. But like, I wonder what that looks like and means for you at this moment in your arc. What are the things that you're prioritizing?
Well, for me, it's a little different because I usually work a lot. I have a full-time job, and then in the weekends I do commissions, and then I work also on my own art. So when this started, I was in the middle of starting my new work for my new exhibition, and I usually go to Albion to a friend's studio, which has a very big kiln where I can make my sculptures on site and then fire them because they're life size, the ones that I started. So right now I have these sculptures there, one finished and one just started that I haven't seen in 5 weeks. And I have very intensive schedules. I grab the time that I have and I just go work nonstop. So coming to this full stop has been very disorientating. I couldn't figure out what I'm going to do next and how to manage my time. I do take walks and go in the garden and but I haven't worked on a project because I was so intensely immersed in what I was doing that I didn't know what to do next. And now I started, I'm going back to some of the projects I had unfinished, and I'm also revisiting a lot of the things I've done before, and I see them in a completely different light, which I assume is a very good thing.
Yeah, to be able to have this, I mean, I love the reframe of being able to look at this as like the benefit of having some distance on something, whether it's these, whether it's this life-size sculpture that's waiting for you in Albion, or even like, pulling some things off of the shelf or out of a box that you haven't worked on in a while. Is there stuff around the studio that you can share some of this stuff you're revisiting?
Yeah, sure. I will take you on a walk around. This is a place in my house where I usually work on illustration and I finish up pieces. My work area is not here. But yeah, I will show you around. One of the things that I wanted to go back to your question, one of the things that I really try to do is connect with people. In the past, if I had a weekend free, I would close the doors and order takeout and not leave the house and turn off my phone. Now I'm in this situation for the past 5 weeks, and I do the opposite. I call people that I haven't talked to in years, and I try to be constantly in contact with people, which is so strange. I thought the best thing that could happen to me is that I have time to work. All right, I should take you around. I will just go around and then when you see something you would like to know more about, please ask questions.
All right.
All right. Okay. So
wow.
this is a piece that I've done last year for a few different things, but it was in an art show called Anti-Art Fair in London.
Mm.
And I designed them. You can't see that right now, unfortunately, but I designed them to work with the shadows. It's a 3D filament that is a plant resin, and it's about, the whole work was about the oceans. I still have some of them laying around.
I love how they catch the light when you have
Yeah.
them. It really like reminds me of different levels of the ocean. And Lavinia, these are made with one of those 3D pens, right? Like the pen that draws in space.
Yeah, there are 3D pens. They're not really for artists. They're more designed for younger people to play with. So, yes. All right. These are from my last exhibition. It was called The Huntress, and these are some of the pieces that I've done in Albion in the big kiln. And each of these pieces had poetry, had a poem that accompanied them. Let's see if I can find her. I collaborated with an amazing artist. Her name is Katie Farris. And a long time ago, she asked me if I would illustrate her book, which turned out to be amazing. And let's see, right there.
Oh, cool.
And later, when I had my show, I told her about my show, and she offered to write poems for my pieces, and that happened in less than 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
So each of them had a backstory that was imagined by Katie.
You know, I've often thought, Lavinia, because I love your work and I've seen it in different forms, and
Thank you.
the figurative element of your work, it's almost storytelling in its own way, even that these figures that you create feel as if there's a story that's always accompanying it or that might exist about these characters.
Yeah,
So,
it is. There is a whole one of the things that I was fascinated with when I grew up were folk stories from around the world.
Mm.
So there are many layers to my work, but some of the work that I do, which creates this imagery, I make it for my own, for myself, and it's my way to rearrange the world. It was very difficult to grow up in Romania. Sometimes, if I ever get nostalgic, I reread 1984 just to remind myself that I shouldn't be nostalgic about anything that was in my childhood.
Wow.
But my first way of making art was this form of escaping or changing reality into something else.
Through these photos.
These are some photography that I used to do. I haven't worked in photography for a very long time. And I wanted to show you this. They don't look like much, but they're called kiln gods. And we people that work with fire are superstitious. So every time we fire a kiln, we make a few of these to guard the firing. This one didn't have any glaze on it, and the wood ash would turn to colors and glass on it. It's fired to 2400 degrees. And this one I made in Japan on another kiln that was fired with oil. And this one, which I just broke, I made in Iceland in a kiln that I built myself and fired with pellets. I was in a port area, and I fired that with pellets and seaweed. So these are the three kiln gods that I I put on my work. And that's a kiln brick over there in the back.
Wow.
All right.
I love how they're
Lavinia,
each I love how they are each a record of the kiln and the location where the work
Yes.
was made based on what goes into the kiln with them.
Yeah.
Lavinia, do you
yeah.
have could you talk a little about scale and how, these are so intimate, these smaller works, and then you also do these larger works. So do they do something different for you, or is your relationship different depending on the scale?
I have to say the change in scale happened when I became a mother. Before that, I was working only large scale, and I would have the time to be in the studio for a week. And honestly, I didn't come out much, and I was working only life size. I was very, when I became a mother, I thought, oh, this is going to be a temporary thing, maybe, I don't know, 6 months tops, and then I go back to my schedule. And I remember having this 6-month-old baby in my studio, trying to work between her naps. And it didn't work out. So I changed. That's when I started doing pottery. I had a constant thing to work on, and it didn't take me more than an hour or two to spend on them, but there was constantly something to work on. I still make some of them, not a lot of them though. And they're more for play. So another thing that I have here on the wall, there's a manuscript that I was planning to illustrate for the past 3 years, and it has a deadline I gave myself, like October 2020. Hopefully that happens.
Did that paper say I promise on it?
Yes. It did say I promise. I took it everywhere with me, and for some reason I never got too far on illustrating it. And this is a woodcut that I've done since the pandemic started, mostly because I wanted to give it away to people, so it's on my website, they can download it. And it says no tears, no fears. Someday, some way, we'll be together again. And that's about it. I also share my studio with my daughter, who is working on a commission for a pediatric hospital. And these are my teens from the neutral zone. We have to finish this one up too, so we can send them over to the hospital.
Do you think too of your work as being painterly? Because to me, it also feels so painterly in the way you create these pieces.
Well, I can't tell for sure. I truly I don't like color. At least I think I don't like color. My minor was printmaking in college, so I'm always attracted to black and white, maybe one other color. But lately, I started adding color to everything. I also don't like color in ceramics. I love the pieces before they're fired, when they're pure white, or I like to work with black clay, so they're pure black. I use glazes and colors, but I'm not really interested in doing it. I like the chemistry of it. There's a strong scientific part of ceramics that deals with chemistry and how the fire changes everything. So I really love that part. And right now I'm interested in biomimetics, in which some colors look colorful, but they're actually just surfaces that reflect the light in different ways. And there are many studies that people are trying to use that in textiles, in the automotive industry. And I was always wondering if there's a way to bring that to ceramics, because most of the oxides we're using in ceramics to create color, they come from conflict areas. So there's an ethical part to it too.
I think that your work so clearly embraces process, and we've been talking about this process that we're in that feels uncertain, and the time needed, particularly as an artist, to to think things through and find your way. So I guess with that in mind, I'd like to ask you, what do you feel is possible in terms of art or artists responding in a crisis like this? What is the role of art even in crisis?
Well, I think it depends very much on the artist. There's many reasons people make art. Some are very personal and selfish. Some are incredibly generous. I have layers of, I make art for myself, but I also make art that takes a lot of time and involves the community, and it gets destroyed immediately after. And I have no ties to it other than that event in which this art interacts with people or is created together with people. I think people are looking at artists right now for everything, for entertainment, for comfort, so it ties into the generosity of the artist.
Yeah.
I think you showed us so many of your beautiful works and so much of your generosity. Kind of as a last question, what are you looking towards right now for beauty? Like, what are you feeling like is helping you sustain that like fire and that push to continue to create in these moments?
I look towards artists. So I got back to my own community, and I stay in touch with everybody. I've been looking through artwork, what other people are making, artwork that I have. I communicate. I talk with people a lot. This is what helps me in these times.
I think you spoke so eloquently about connection and finding these ways of connecting, even if they aren't the usual ways, that it's some small thread or tributary that can bring us together, even if it's just, a conversation.
There are a lot of people that found ways to collaborate right now. They would take the same theme and work together online in real time with people joining in on Instagram. And I did that with ceramics, and I had just a couple of people that were following my instructions, making very simple forms in clay. But more than 40 people joined because they were interested in seeing it, and they ask questions. And that is a way to communicate and to join into a creative process, even though you're not there in person. It is very, right now I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I'm going back to teaching, because I've been teaching for a very long time, and I will have to change the way I teach. And ceramics is a very tactile process, and printmaking. It's complicated to teach it without touching.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about like what needs to have an online version. Like I don't necessarily want to watch like a play on stage online. I want to see that in real life, where I would see a movie. Like, I think there are certain, I don't know, it's a big question for me about like what should be translated to a virtual way of doing things, and what to me would be worth just waiting for to do in real life again.
There's something that I was actually thinking of. I was always very proud of this skill I had. I thought, no matter where you send me, you can drop me anywhere in the world, and I don't speak the language. But by the end of the day, if I have a pen and paper, I will end up having food and a drink, because people would buy me dinner and get me a drink because I was drawing them. So I always had this. I had it on the back of my head. It doesn't matter where I go, but it was just geographical. So now all of a sudden I realized if there's no people, my skill means nothing. I have to have the people. We have to, as artists, we have to have our community. We don't It doesn't matter if I can draw.
And to your point, Lavinia, most of what we make as humans means nothing without humans. Like if chairs have no meaning without our existence, because like rocks existed before and did just as meaningful work. So did what chairs did before they existed. And so I wonder, to your point about connectivity and how that enhances your work. It just makes me think about the intimacy and the relational aspect, which does not like exist in the same way with a chair. Like, yes, there's like an artistic aspect to it, but there's a different level of intimacy that goes into the level of work that you're creating, and the both in size and in variety of the work that you're making.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. That concept, that thought of the work for humans doesn't exist or like the work doesn't exist without other humans. I can't even like speak eloquently about this right now, because I just feel so in the middle of that question myself, like as somebody who makes a lot of creative work around events and like through things that rely on other people being there. I'm really with you in that question of
this is the first year that the festival parade was canceled, and for the past 7 years, 8. Oh, I'm losing track. 8 years since I moved here. That was my first contact with a studio in Ann Arbor was by volunteering there, and then immediately after that, I got hired to design the puppets. And when it didn't happen, this event that brings 6,000 people in the street, it made me feel so lost. It was part of my spring. That's what meant spring for me, being in the studio making these giant puppets that we immediately after the event we would trash them. We would allow the students to step on them and break them, things we worked on for 3 months every day.
I think though you're bringing up great points, some like existential questions about like why do we do what we do, and what is the purpose behind what we do, and is the purpose meaningful? How does the purpose's meaning shift as our like medium of relationship and our medium of like connection shift? And I think it's hard but like amazing inquiry to be engaged in.
Yeah.
Lavinia, thank you so much for taking us around your studio and just really getting into the full experience of the last couple of weeks and months, and what things look like ahead also. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you.
Just been a privilege. Thank you so much, Lavinia, for sharing
with us. Thank you. I appreciate your giving me this opportunity, and it was a very nice conversation.
Agreed.
We'll talk to you soon.
We'll see you in real life. Yeah, see you in real life.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.